So hello CIS269. I wanted to give you just a quick overview of C++ code that should be writing for assignment 1. Now unfortunately I don't have Visual Studio on my computer, so mostly this will just be going over the mechanics of writing it. However, you can use the same code. I'm going to be using this in Eclipse. I'll put there's a link down in the comments or down below. You can use that link to get Eclipse with the C and use the C++ package to do it, or also you can just wait for me to get you guys the Imagine accounts for Visual Studio C++. So this assignment basically have 3 parts. The first part is just to print out a hello world. So for the basics of the hello worlds, you just basically need to do some initial stuff in the C++ program. So first off, we're going to bring in the include file. So we're going to include IOStream. Now this is just kind of flesh out the thing, this is a basic directory that does a lot of the input-output stuff, hence the IO stuff. And then we just need to make a main file. And so since I'm doing this in Eclipse, it's going to look a little bit different for your code if you do it in Visual Studio, but you can just basically copy this verbatim and this should work. So I'm going to do int main int argc, so it stands for argument count, and then char star star, which is going to stand for the arguments. So these are the values. If you do this command line, these are the arguments that are going to be read in. And then I do int. So sometimes if you run a program within a program, you can get a return value. And so the int is generally just kind of a way to check to see if it's working or something And so this is going to be fairly simple. So I'm just going to do for this particular program, for the output, all you need to do is you're going to use the standard library, cout, and then you're going to stream the values, hello world, and then end line here. And so I quickly just turned this off, but I turned it on again, but I ran this. And this should basically give you the final value. And generally when you have so you can see down here, hello world, and Visual Studio will have a similar console down here that'll give you the output. And then basically, since you have an int here, you always want to do a return value. So we return 0, which generally means good. Generally positive numbers means it's a good completion. C++ negative values generally means it's a bad one. It's kind of overall best practice. The second part is going to make a simple loop that counts from 1 to 10. Basically, we're going to be using a for loop here. Okay, now I'm going to add a for loop. So basically, for part 2, we're going to count to 10. So I'll say part 1, hello world. Part 2, count to 10. So for this one, it's going to be a very simple for loop. I'm going to do for int ii equals 0. And you'll notice throughout the semester, I like using ii instead of I for the incrementer, basically because I program in MATLAB a lot, and stands for, if you put I in something, it usually stands for its imaginary number. And so basically, the long as the value's less than or equal to 10, so actually since I'm counting to 10, I'll stay with this one here. And then do ii equals plus plus, and then just print out the value. And so for this, I'll do standard cout, and then if I do ii, and then standard end line. In this case, I'm just going to build it and run it. So it looks like I built, and then I'm going to run it. And you see the output here. And so if you do choose to use Eclipse, what I did was to run this is I built it, which is going to be the same process for Visual Studio, and then you kind of use this play button to run it. And then part 3 is we're going to actually save these parts to an array. So what we can do is both either static array or dynamic array. I'll explain that when we get back to class in a couple of weeks. And then for part 3, we want to store in memory. And so I can basically do this in the same portion as I do the for loop. So what I want to do is I'm going to make it a constant value. I'll make this, call this max, equals 10. So you'll see me in the class use hard-coded numbers. Basically, if you write the numbers in there, that's generally not best practice. Almost always you just want to use basically 1 and 0, the hard-coded numbers that's okay to use. So in this case, I need to allocate some memory. So I'm going to go over this a little bit more when I go over abstract data types for the next unit. But I do want to introduce dynamic memory allocation, since it's going to be a big part of this class. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dynamically allocate memory. I call this darray equals new int, and then the braces is going to be the size. So basically this is saying I'm creating a pointer that goes to darray, and then I'm going to allocate memory at that location to 10. So call this max. And then whenever you allocate memory, so whenever you use new, so that's dynamically allocated memory, you always want to have delete. So I'm going to do delete darray, and this is basically going to deallocate the memory. So you don't get something called a memory leak, where there's basically not deallocated memory, it's just taking up space. And then so to write to the values, I'm going to write darray ii equals ii. I'll save this, build it, and then run it. I'm just going to basically just do one more thing where I'm going to basically give it a hard value. So this, I don't need this portion. So this is called a static memory allocation. And so I have to debug while I'm getting a run error. But it finished running completed. So basically if you do this, you will be able to essentially complete homework 1. So I'll see you in a few weeks. I hope you have a nice Labor Day. Or have it.